Okay, so we're gonna wait few minutes till, more people, to admit more people before we start our webinar. Yeah, still joining. Okay.
Rudra, Abdul, go wake up them. Abdul, you don't want to go home. Rudra, the buses will leave, then I don't know. I also will do now. Wake up.
Okay, can you please, mute your mics, please. Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is for people sending us messages on the chat box, telling us where they are. Hello to everyone. Just waiting few more minutes. Let's wait till 3 more minutes for people to join, and then we're gonna start. We don't want anyone to, miss anything. Yeah. And I'll appreciate if you can mute your mics, please, before we start. You can share with us in the chat box, where are you from? That will be wonderful.
Por este tipo de cosas que me dan vidilla y ansiedad, está ido sobre todo el tema de las de que, por ejemplo,
Paula, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. Okay, everyone. Hello, everyone, and good morning from Egypt. It's 11:35 a.m. Actually, we're honored to have you in our new webinar. My name is Noha Abu Karam. I'm the head of the testing unit in the English Language Center in Forest University in Alexandria, and I'll be your host for today. So today we have a very special webinar. We have our guest Penelope, and Penelope has great experience in dealing with young children. And I'm very actually thrilled and excited about today's webinar because we don't host many speakers to talk about this age group, although it's a very important and crucial age group for all teachers, most teachers, you know. And I feel that we have many attendees of our attendees, you know, who fall with this age group. They teach this age group, you know, from pre-K to, let's say, 12-year-old. So yeah, this webinar is for you. I'll appreciate if you can mute your mic. Can you please mute your mics? Yeah. Shabnam, can you please mute your mic? Okay, then I'll have to mute you. I'm sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, it's a very exciting topic with a very you know, special, unusual speaker. And before we start, I just want to remind you that I shared with you our Facebook page, and I'd like you to visit our Facebook page for our upcoming webinars, professional development events, also to check our CELTA courses, the face-to-face ones and the online ones, plus all the other professional development opportunities we present. Also, if you want to be a speaker or a presenter in one of our webinars, you can contact us on our contact emails and also social media platforms. Okay, we'll be happy, okay, to consider you and your topic. For the attendees certifications, okay, we'll be sending these certifications to you all, okay, via email. In just your, in case you're wondering, and also if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to share your questions in the chat box. If you want to keep them till the end of the webinar, that will be fine as well. Thank you so much, and I'll leave the floor to Penelope to introduce herself and to start her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noha. First of all, thank you for being here. I see there's people from all over the world, and I appreciate that you're here in spite of time zones. I know it's evening for some of you, maybe night. For me, it's 11:38 in the morning. I'm in the same time zone. And I'm just here to share my experiences with you. I've been working with children for 25, maybe 26 years. And lately I've been a PYP teacher, and I've been working with early years and lower primary. And this is what I'm going to try and share with you here today, how to design meaningful learning experiences for our children and with our children, and also how to design what we call a unit of inquiry in PYP, which is, you know, a learning experience anyhow. I will try to keep it simple, straight to the point, and very clear. And as Noha said, feel free to make questions during the presentation, and I will try to answer them while the presentation is going on or at the end. I'm just going to share my screen. I like to be, you know, precise and meaningful, so I will just start as soon as possible. Okay. I hope you can all see my presentation right now. Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello?
If not, be patient, because I think in some computers it takes some time to load. I'm a bit overwhelmed by all the people joining in. I'm starting to be a bit scared, but I will try to do my best. I decided to call the presentation Let's Rock Together because I think we have to co-construct this presentation with our experience. I don't know if you're early years, if you're lower primary, if you're primary, if you have no contact with little ones. Anyhow, this presentation will help you because it's basically for everybody. Unit of inquiry, design and development. As I said, it could be also be defined as co-constructing learning experiences with our students. Here is a little bit about me. I've just been a PYP teacher since before pandemic, and I felt that it has changed my mindset, my way of teaching, and my way of approaching to learning. So ever since I've been implementing different adaptations, techniques in my lessons, I've been working with different approaches. And lately I've started doing this, giving workshops, joining in sessions, and mentoring other teachers, because I believe that the best thing we can do is share. So let's go straight to the point. I've just divided this in 5 stages, I would say. A little introduction with little theory, because we are all teachers and we all know our theory and we don't want it. We want the practice, the hands-on experiences that we can use in our classrooms. Then a sneak peek of how I design my units of inquiry and, therefore my learning experiences. Practical examples of my day-to-day class life. Challenges and adaptations I was facing and I will still face. And then I've kept a little number 5 for conclusions and questions, because I think that will be the best part. Okay, introduction. It doesn't matter if you call it a unit of inquiry, if you call it a theme you are dealing with, if you call it content. We must keep in mind, or I believe we must keep in mind, the final product. That means where we want our students to be at the end of the unit, in content and in learning. Okay.
Tú si necesitas un martillo, vamos a ferretería o necesitas un
I
candado.
think someone needs to mute the phone, the speaker, please. Okay, so basically where we want our students to be at the end of the unit, both in content and in learning. Sorry, I got a little bit lost. That means, what do we want them to know academically wise? Because we all have our planning, our contents that we have to teach at the end of the year. We divide it in terms, we divide it in weeks, but then also where we want to be in their learning. If we want them to be more independent, if we want them to be better at cooperative learning, if we want them to be more reflective. So we have to keep those things in mind to design a final product. That means that when we design our unit, in this case, our unit of inquiry, we start in reverse. We start from the end. This is a bit shocking sometimes, but I believe most of you do it. We choose a learning experience and a final product, taking into account that that learning experience and that final product has inside all the contents we have to teach academically. In my case, I work with transdisciplinary learning. That means all the subjects will be inside that learning experience and that final product: maths, language, foreign language, arts, music, anything you teach in your school. And it also has to engage learners, of course, especially with the little ones. If they are not engaged, we lose them. And it also has to match all the content we have to cover. That is the tricky bit. And that is also connected to the essential questions and PYP elements that we want to include. I'm talking in PYP language because I'm a PYP teacher. But I don't know how many of you here are PYP teachers, so I'm just not going to mention them at all. Or I'm not going to mention them a lot, because I don't want to confuse people. But basically, the things you have to take into account is that you have to start from the end instead of from the beginning. I will clarify that later with an example. The learning experience that we design will connect all the units and will give our learners a motivation and a goal. Especially with little ones, they do need a goal. Everything has to be like a competition for them. A good competition, but it has to give them a purpose. Our keywords here that I'm going to be repeating all presentation because it's what I believe in is confidence in our student and valuing our learner's ability. We have to design our learning experiences, keeping down to earth, but also believing that they are capable of doing incredible things if we let them, if we give them a little freedom. I mean, don't go crazy designing things, but just get a little bit, over the top and make it interesting, of course. Here I have a little brainstorming I did when I was preparing the presentation, and I believe you will find it useful. We have cooperative and collaborative learning. I'm a big believer on that. They learn better when they are working in groups because they learn from and with each other. Feed forward, always giving them meaningful feedback that will take them, forward in the learning. Visible thinking routines. As I said at the beginning, once I became a PYP teacher, I also became a risk taker and I learned lots of new things. And one of the new things I learned to apply and to modify and to adapt were visible thinking routines, how to make thinking visible for my children and how to make them be agents of their own learning. Also translating. What do I mean by translating? I don't mean translating into a language. I mean translating the language so our students can understand what's going on. It's called Learnish in Learning Power approach methodology. That means that if you have like super big academic words, you have to try and find a way of children to understand those. For example, a big central idea, big central academic content. Just make them accessible to children using a language that they understand, especially in the early years. And if they don't understand the language, using images. Self-assessment and group assessment, both individual and with peers. Self-assessment for individual, group assessment with peers. Would help them be more independent, as I said before, and a sense of fulfillment, of being capable of doing things by their own. Learning power approach. That means that we revise and redesign the unit at all time. Our unit is organic. It changes depending on the children's needs and on the children's abilities and what they are capable of. Guided inquiry. I'm talking about inquiry, of course, because I believe in inquiry-based learning. But we give a space to a student's action, to a student's independency and agency, a student's ownership of their learning. So we will be guides, we will be facilitators, we will be, controlling a little bit what's going on, but we have to give a little space, as I said, to a bit of craziness, of a student's action and of agency to get out of control. But it's nice if they believe and they see that they can do things on their own. And then the classroom has to be a safe space, co-designed with the students and with the students and for the students. And you have to make them believe that they are capable of everything. So this is my little brainstorming. And then the design, as I said, we start planning from the end. We will plan the unit combining specific academic competencies. In my case, the Spanish requirements. I don't know if you know I'm from Spain. I've said it before. And it's called LOMLOE. So that's the law that we have to cover as a school. And it tells us the contents that every year group should acquire before it finishes. But we combine it with basic knowledge skills. So the keywords when we design will be what we want to achieve at the end, how we will develop that learning, and for what is the comprehension objective. Where do we want our learners to arrive? Where do we want them to be? You can see in this photo how we started our unit with a little investigation. I will explain to you later. But basically, we were going around the school investigating and finding out information we needed to start our unit. And I already knew how it was supposed to end. Then, once we establish those objectives, once we match the government academic requirements with our own skills requirements, the learning power approach will come into play. We will adapt, we will innovate, we will change according to the students' curiosities. And here it's a question that maybe you can reflect on and, tell me at the end. As teachers, are you rock or water teachers and thinkers? That means that if you want to embrace this way of designing a unit, you cannot be a rock, you cannot be unchangeable and static. You have to be water and learn how to dive around difficulties and how to flow. So you have to think if you can move from rock to water, if you're already water, how are you as a teacher? Because co-designing and co-adapting is the key. You have to be part of the process. You have to basically think as your children are thinking. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said to her that I have learned to think like a 6-year-old. I work with first of primary in Spain is 6 to 7. So my mind now thinks when I'm at the school like a 6-year-old. Okay, through this process, everything is supposed to be linked in a natural way. At the beginning, it's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a good learning experience, and you will need to have everything very well structured, so you feel confident and your students thus feel confident too. But if you do it well, and if all the subjects are linked and connected in a natural way, and the goal is a real and meaningful product that can make, all children in your class show their skills, join in, be active, be interested, be, if the knowledge is also linked together and all the ATS are there, they will achieve a life learning. They will be active learners.
I'm sorry, Penny,
That's
but
what-
we have to stop for a minute. Can you please mute your mics?
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's getting a little bit crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't worry. I was trying to to be focused, but I couldn't. Thank you very much, Noha.
You're welcome.
So as I was saying, if we follow this process, I was telling you, everything should be linked in a natural way. But I know that it's hard at the beginning. So what you need is to be very structured, very focused, have everything very well planned, and also be willing to change. You have to link all your subjects in a natural way. And you need a goal, real and meaningful product. Because with that, every child in your class will show their skills, their knowledge, their ATLs, which is a specific subject in PYP, but basically it's how they communicate, how they are social, and how they develop their social emotional learning, how they develop their thinking skills, and they will achieve a lifelong learning. That means they will remember forever what they have learned because they will link it to something real, to something meaningful. They will be active. One colleague was asking me, how do I design my meaningful and real products, my learning experiences, my goals? Using lots of imagination and asking friends, basically, as I said, getting a little bit into the mind of my students. I'm just going to show you some units of inquiry I've designed, and you will understand how can you design a meaningful product with all the academic skills inside. These are the 3 examples I'm going to use. I'm sorry, there was a typo at the top and it says ejemplos in Spanish instead of examples, but I think you will understand it anyhow. I just realized maybe my computer corrected it. I'm just going to use 3 units that are really meaningful for me and for my children. The first one is our house is our home. And we talk about how a home doesn't have to be a house. We can live in a shelter, we can live in a caravan, we can live in a hut, we can live in a cave, but we can make that our home. It doesn't have to be a house. So we talk about shelters and we have the theme where we are in place and time, which is one of the 6 transdisciplinary themes in PYP. Then the second unit I'm going to explain is Grease Lightning. We talk about systems and how systems organize the world. It's quite theoretical for 6 years old. And it's from the transdisciplinary theme, how the world works. And then the third one is one of my favorite ones, is The Greatest Show. We make a theater play as a final product. And we learn how to write tales, stories, poems, and it's how we express ourselves. All the titles of my units come from songs because I love music, so I decided so. And I find that giving the unit a meaningful title also keeps the children more connected. In my case, at the beginning of the unit, we always listen to the song and we dance a little bit, and that, makes the tuning in with the unit a little bit more fun. But that's my style. Other workmates use Disney films titles. Others use, nursery rhymes. Others just use normal sentences, but I try to make it more fun. Again, these 3 units I'm going to share with you are not perfect. They change every year. They move from one term to another. And also what you're going to see are examples from last year. Here they have come out completely different. Something else I have to mention as well is that usually I plan my units of inquiry depending on children's progress and maturity. That means the ones with the easier academic concepts are at the beginning of the school year. And then as things get more difficult, children get more mature, more used to the procedures in class, more used to working collaboratively and cooperatively, to use visible thinking routines. So they are ready for units with more complex academic contents. If you have any questions, I can stop here before the examples, and then we can continue.
Okay, I'll start with my questions, Penelope.
Okay.
You mentioned to start from the end, and then when you mentioned the keywords, you have in Spain.
Yes.
That you start with what to achieve, and then how and for what. I think that would explain why you start from the end, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
you
so
start from you start from the end, but you must have very clear, as I said, the 3 question words. Where do you want your students to be? What do you want to have in your unit, in your learning experience? And how are you going to reach that? So
okay, great.
with that,
yeah.
You're supposed to be able to design a learning experience that takes you from backwards. That you can start with really basic, and that will lead you to the final product you're designing. But you need to start from the end.
Okay. So the other question I have for you, you mentioned this expression of feed forward.
Yes.
And instead of feedback, because as
Yes.
teachers, we are familiar with this expression of feedback, but not feed forward. Is it yours? Are you the
No,
one
it's not mine. It's not mine. It's not
okay.
mine.
So
It's a common one when you start in the PYP world. As I said, it changed completely my way of teaching. I was a traditional teacher, and then I discovered all these things. Basically, feed forward is when you, instead of telling them what went wrong, you tell them what they can do to make things better in the future.
Okay.
Okay, that's why it's called feed forward. And it's a little bit more positive because you're not focusing on what went or what didn't went well. You're focusing on how they can improve.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it's not the same as feedback.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay,
No,
something different.
no. For example, you can make it in a really simple way for little ones. And you can say, you were working in a group. Okay, what do you think you can improve to work better next time?
Okay.
And they will predict. They will make a prediction of what they can improve.
Okay. That's really nice. Okay, I can see, for me, that's it, but I can see that Tasmin have a question. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much. Penelope, I was wondering that can we use all the three disciplinary themes together? It's possible. I always thought we can use only one, basically.
Do you mean where we are in place on time, how the world works, and how we express ourselves?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
if you're, I mean, that's something from the PYP world, let's say. We have 6 transdisciplinary themes through the whole school year. In the early years, foundation stage, you have 4, and then in primary, you have 6. And they are like 6 units along the year. So you cannot mix them. And basically what you do is you try to put the contents, the academic contents, in the unit where you think that they fit better.
So that's the way you're planning now, the units of inquiry with the three themes.
I'm just
Like
going to show you 3 units with 3 themes, with 3 different themes, and with contents that I thought were okay for those themes, which is the way you plan it in the primary years program.
And this would go on for the whole year or 2 terms? For how many weeks?
Every unit of inquiry lasts 6 weeks.
So the 3 themes can go within 6 weeks. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
It's theme 6 weeks.
2 weeks each. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, don't worry. It's something from PYP World.
Penelope,
Oscar
we
says-
have a question in the chat box that we can take and then continue.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, how do you have, it says, how do you curriculum content while you follow your theme?
Okay, that's like the holy grail question for us teachers. As teachers, basically anything that you can fit from the curriculum into the learning experience, Oscar, because that's Oscar's question. Anything you can fit from the curriculum into the learning experience, you have to link it, and it has to fit inside. For example, you will see it in the examples. You will see that if you're, for example, designing a system, you can fit in maths contents, you can fit science contents, you can fit arts contents, but some things don't fit in. For example, grammar, phonics. Those are called standalone contents, and they are taught in different lessons, like theoretically. But you can use reading, writing, speaking, any other contents, vocabulary. They can fit into the theme, sorry, into the unit. Then Rama says, do you prepare the curriculum overview? Yes, of course. We prepare it. I mean, I say we because we are a team of 2 teachers. And the resources, basically we invent them. As I said, you have to use your imagination. There's some platforms like Toddle, there's some platforms like ManageBack, there's some teachers who share like complete unit plans on Teachers Pay Teachers, but I've made my own units because it's for your students and you have to adapt it to your students. So basically, when I look for a learning experience, first, referring to Oscar's question, I have to try to fit as much curriculum content as possible inside, and it has to be transdisciplinary, it has to be connected, and it has to match. Then the ones that cannot be inside the learning experience are called standalone, and they are taught in different sessions because they are more theoretical. And then I have to prepare the curriculum overview in my planning sessions or in my summer planning time. And with my team is only another teacher. We are 2 teachers in my year group. So we have to plan and develop the units by ourselves. If you are new and you want to check content from other people, but you will always have to adapt. Even the units I'm going to present to you now will have to be adapted. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you so much, Penelope. Actually, we have another 2 questions, but let's continue and keep them toward the end, okay?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we are going to see 3 examples of 3 units. Okay, I'm going to try and go slowly. I've designed this like really visual because I didn't know your previous knowledge about it, but feel free to ask me anything you need later. As I said, this unit is called Our House is Our Home. Is unit number 3 in our year. That means my students are a little bit more mature. They have started writing and reading. I didn't mention that my students are non-native speakers. They have English as a second language, but I teach them in English. So that's another rock I have to, face. But in this 3rd unit, they are starting reading and writing in English, so they are a little bit more capable. If not before, they were drawing, they were saying it orally, and I was, writing things down, but always in English. How do we start the unit? We have like provocations for learning. We have things that will strike them, maybe pictures, maybe objects, maybe a PowerPoint presentation, maybe a school trip if we can do it. And we can have as many provocations as a student needs to make them curious, to make them ready to learn, and to make them, to get them make questions and to get them interested. So the provocations are also designed taking into account the end, the thing we want to arrive, where do we want to arrive at the end of the unit. So I said as many as the students need, because you might have a big one at the beginning, but then you can have mini provocations alongside the unit. And those mini provocations will keep them interesting and will keep them focused, especially being little. We need to get their attention. As I said, the provocations make students curious. And we start with the question culture. They make questions. By making questions, they learn more. And by learning more, they progress. We present the activity we want them to make. Is the product, we present it. And we group and regroup students. So the teacher's role will be facilitator and guide. Why do I say grouping and regrouping? Because my students work in different groups depending on the unit. They are not always in the same group, so they don't get always, they don't get comfortable in a role. For example, if you have 5 children in a group and one of them is really good at writing, he's always going to be the writer in the group. So I might put them together for this unit, but then in the next unit, I will regroup them again. I will be a facilitator, I will be a guide, I will be a supervisor. Then we have the academic contents. The academic contents are inside the unit. They are interlinked and connected, but we do formative assessment. How do we do formative assessment? We can do them by observing students and giving them like a grade or a progress check. We can make like formal formative assessments, not with an exam, but maybe getting some of the work and assessing it. And we can do formative assessments with rubrics, with the students' rubrics. Then we get into the final product design for this unit, okay? And the unit finished with a celebration of learning, as I call it now, but it's the former summative assessment, like a global assessment. And it was an oral group presentation. In this case, Our House is Our Home. As I said, this unit was about natural and social science. It also had maths and Spanish language, English language inside, arts and crafts. And it was about acquiring the concept that we can have our home where we live, and it doesn't have to be a house. So we talked about shelters. And all the unit was focused on a final product design, which was designing a shelter for a given landscape. I had 4 groups. One of them was living in the desert. The other one was living in a plain. The other one was living in the mountains. and they had to design a shelter that was fit, that was adequate for that environment. And then they had to present their work orally. So we had academic contents from science, we had academic contents from English,